Hey folks, John with Complete Technology Solutions, your friend in less than lethal self-defense. Guys, I guess you can see what we're going to do today. We have had a lot of requests to break this bad boy down and show you down to the nuts and bolts how to put it back together just in case a spring goes twing. Here we go. All right, guys, so before we start, I want to announce something, but I want you guys to understand that I only have a limited stock. So, and I know when I say this, it's automatically going to get nailed and everybody's going to love it and all that stuff. But here's the drill. I've made a decision, and this is going to make a lot of people out there that sell accessories rather angry with this. You all know that I made a decision a little while ago that any of the T4E line that went out, so the Glock, Walther, Smith, HK, any of that, was going to have the magazines pre-modified before they ever left my door. Well, I've made another decision. Anybody that buys the modified TR50s, HDR68s, or HDP50s from me will receive, if you have an HDP50, you're going to get the speed loader, and any of them that goes out are going to have the butt strike cap already with them in the box. Guys, this is a gift from me to you for helping me with this channel to get us to this point. Oh, and one more thing. You may have noticed I dropped my Patreon down there, and I have picked up a few patrons. Anybody that is a patron of mine at any level is going to get 10% off of their entire purchase. That's on top of all the free stuff I'm throwing in. This is my gift to you guys. You don't have any idea how much this channel means to me, but the truth is, I think you do know how important less lethal self-defense is to me, and that's exactly why I'm doing it. So, once again, TR50, HDR68, or the HDP50, everybody will have a butt striker. And if you're getting an HDP50, I'm going to throw in a version 1 of the speed loader. Now, if you want a version 2 or version 3, it's a little bit more because it takes more time. About 8 hours to print these guys, and a little more time for the when you're putting the Picatinny rails on it, and it costs more in filament. So there you go. That's my gift to you guys. You're welcome. There you go. All right. So we're going to just jump right into this, guys. We're going to tear this thing down. As you can see, that is stock out of the box. I mean, nothing on this has been changed whatsoever. I am going to remove the valve block on this because it is going to be going out, but this is more of an instructional video for you, tearing it down, putting it back together. So what I want to do is I'm going to align Stumpy right here on top of our breakdown table. And you guys have all seen this before. All right, guys. So what you're going to need is a regular old punch. Now, I've done this with a nail or, anything you've got that can actually get into these small pins here. You're going to want to lay the weapon down on its left-hand side, so with the barrel facing over to your right. All right? You're going to want to tap out those pins. Now, you don't have to get them all the way out at this point. You just want to tap them out. So you got one there and one there. Now, these two pins are the ones that hold the slide in place. So if you're just going to do a screw-in valve block removal, you can do it from this point right here. And I'm going to show you that real quick. All right, let's get the second pin out. There we go. Now, to remove the slide, simply grab, pull back, and up, and the slide will come directly off. Now, that is the valve that you're going to remove if you want to remove the valve block from the back. Now, guys, you've seen me do this mod 1,000 times, and you know that it's easier to push it from this direction, even though you have to break the weapon down, than it is to try to actually put it in there and pull it out from the back. You know that. So we're going to go ahead and we'll just break this down all the way now, and we'll show you. Now, once again, we've got her laying back on her side here, and we're going to push this down. There we go. And push this down. There we go. And one last one down on the grip. By the way, if you guys are curious, this is my son printed this for me. And the idea was, you see how there's got those ridges there? So we could fire and see what kind of penetration we were getting. But as it turns out, is it a perfect build a block to knock these out through, so you can so you don't have to set it on the table. Pretty neat, right? So, and by the way, if you look at the front, you see what it says there? Don't shoot me. Gotta love it. All right. So we got down here. Let's go ahead and take her apart. And I'm going to put all of our pieces, guys, over onto the side over here. Keep it all together, because when you're reassembling, you'll make your life a whole lot easier if you got everything in one place. So, okay. So from here, guys, we're going to lay it on our side. We're going to pull out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. All right? And I'm going to do this live. If you guys want to fast forward this stuff, you can. But I want you to see how we're doing everything. And I'm going to leave these screws in place, guys. So you don't have to take them all the way out. Just screw them until they're all, out, and then leave them in the launcher. There we go. Yeah, I get requested videos on this one and the TR50 quite a bit. We did the HDR68, the complete teardown, and it actually helped several people. So I decided we were going to go ahead and extend this series to all of them. And I think the the TR50 will be next, which, by the way, is what's sitting over here on the side. So, all right. So once we've got all of our screws loosened, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What you want to do is you want to take a flat tip screwdriver, and you want to go between the trigger and the top. And I'm going to try to show you guys this nice and close. So right there. And you want to pry just a little bit to get this area to separate a tiny bit. All right? So I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to pry a tiny bit. And there we go. I can feel it separating. You see how I'm kind of wiggling it? There you go. Now we're going to go over here to the side. Now, one thing that I have learned that's a good trick, and I want to grab this and show you guys. You can use any piece of like a plastic or a credit card or anything else. I use these little phone repair things. When you get a gap, if you put it between there, you can move down a little bit, pry a tiny bit, move it down a tiny bit. You don't want to score up or mess up this aluminum, so you want to be real careful with that. And you want to make sure that all your screws are totally loose before you start screwing down there. And see, there you go. There was one that was tight. 1, 2. There you go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. So that one's loose now. I was talking and I wasn't looking at it. So actually, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. 2 in the back, middle, 2 at top, here, here, and here. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go in there again. We're going to pry a tiny bit, and I can feel it loosening up. Now, what I'll usually do right here is go into the middle, and I can pry up. Now, if you see that, it separates the way on the top here. And then when you get a separation, I'm going to show you this. You can actually put your, see how that pen kind of held in there? And you see how it gave me a tiny gap. Now, that tiny gap will then allow you to get the screwdriver in there like that. And you see what just happened right there? When I put a little bit of pressure, it popped up. So continue on around, go slowly. And as you can see now, it loosened up nicely. There you go. So you guys just saw the trick to doing that, right? Lift up here just a tiny bit. You don't want to bend it, just enough to get a little tiny credit card or something in right here. Screwdriver in and just work your way down, and you'll pop this open. Okay, cracking her open. There we go. Now, I want to give you guys a rundown on what everything is in here, because a lot of people are asking these questions, all right? This is the follower that follows the round that goes down, okay? Here's your barrel. And on the end of the barrel, that rubber thing you see right there is called the detent. If you're firing steel balls or aluminum, this is what wears out more often than not. And what the detent does is, you'll notice this is wider than this. This detent holds that ball in place until it's ready to fire. All right? You got your trigger mechanism. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull out the bolt and the CO2 chamber before I pull the trigger mechanism apart, because we're under a lot of pressure right here. Now, if you're doing this in order to just change out the block, then you don't have to remove any of this. What I do is take my fingers, hold down, just like that. Pop. Now, do you guys see what just happened? That's a valuable lesson right there. Had my finger not been right there when this popped forward, this thing would have blown into pieces. But you just learned a valuable lesson. Keep it in place. All right. Now, we're going to pull this apart. This is actually the bolt retainer, the bolt spring. That's the bolt itself. Down in the bolt, that's the firing pin. Now, guys, I have tried multiple levels of firing pin, and I've gotten the ones from the same people everybody else does, Home Defense 24, and I've got Modern Combat, all those guys. And honestly, I found a small difference, but not a huge difference in the performance of those firing pins. So basically all they are is just a tiny bit shorter. Yeah, kind of interesting. But all right, so there you go. We're going to set that aside. And this is where the valve is. So you would unscrew this to push the valve out. You know what? We're here anyway. Let's go ahead and do it. Here we go. Got our valve tool. By the way, this valve tool is so useful. If you guys can't tell how useful that little tool is, yeah. And this is the one that actually had drilled out. I ordered a bunch of these valves, and they haven't come in yet. I'm going to have them drilled out. All right, you look in the back there. You see that valve, that blockage? That is what's constricting your airflow, and it's making this thing stay at 7.5 or 11 joules. So flip it over, and what I usually do is in the kits to upgrade these, they're going to give you a long screw which you will put into the valve block in order to put in the chamber block in there. And you kind of push it up in there. It's a CO2 restrictor. That also works perfectly for pushing that back out the other side. Watch. All right, so down here, if you look at this, this is the screw piece they're going to give you to screw into the CO2 restrictor that actually goes up into the CO2 chamber. But if you put it in from the back like that, you can just tap it, and out the back will come the valve block. Be real careful. You guys see that rubber seal? You need to make sure that you get that out of there and that there's no rubber seal that is left inside that block, which you guys can now see is totally clear. Okay? This is all very, very important. You want to be careful of that. Then you go ahead and you put your valve back together. Now, guys, when you're tightening this, you do not have to get like gorilla tight. It's not necessary. You just have to get it snug plus maybe 1/10 of a turn. So there you go. Screw that down. There we go. And snug and there. So you don't have to get crazy with that, all right? This is now ready to go full unblocked. Now, since we're here, guys, I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of things. This is things that people make mistakes on quite a bit. This trigger spring is a pain in the butt. And let me pull this up here for you. If you ever have an HDP50 where you pull the trigger and it just blows all the air out at one time, assuming that you have not cranked this down and damaged this seal, then what you're seeing is that spring has slipped off and it's allowing the bolt to just go forward and throw all the air out without actually kicking it back. I have seen that happen a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that spring out. And trust me, guys, it is under tension. So I'm being very careful there. There you go. And we're going to put it back in just a second. I'm going to put that spring there. And that is the catch for the bolt. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the trigger mechanism. And as you guys can see, under the trigger mechanism, and I'm going to try to get this up here again, there is another spring. And if you look at that closely, you're going to see that you've got the long end is up against this. It's braced against the frame, and the short end goes against the bottom of the trigger. All right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull that out. There we go. So that is stripped all the way down with only the spring left. Now, to put that back in there, we're going to just exactly reverse the direction. So we're going to put in our follower. What this does, guys, every time you pull the trigger, this releases one ball and then goes up and locks so that another ball cannot follow it into the cylinder. Now, you will know you have this in place right. If you put that in upside down, you see how freely that floats, guys? If you put this in upside down, watch what happens. There's no movement. It won't move at all. So don't worry about that, putting it upside down. There's only one way that this will fit and function properly. There you go. All right, now for the spring, as you can see, there's a notch right there. That notch is where the short end of this spring goes. That's what gives the trigger pressure. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to slide the trigger down, and we're going to get it on that notch right off the bat, because if you get it right, and I'm going to turn this over here, see the trigger notch? See that spring right there? You want to push that spring under the trigger, just like that. See how that slid into place? Okay, now we're going to flip her back over, and we're going to continue the assembly. So there you go. So you can see there's the trigger, and everything is working normally there. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our bolt catch. There we go. And we're going to install the spring for the bolt catch. Now, you see how you've got, and I want to show you this real close if I can, guys. See how you got a lower end and upper end on this thing, right? Here's the lower end, and you see how it's short and it's perfectly angled down. So if you see how that is, see how it's perfectly angled down? That's going to go down into the launcher right on top of this pin right here, okay? So you want to put that down on that pin, and you'll see that what's going to happen is it'll overlap in the back here. Let me get that back there. And guys, don't worry if you slip on this or you it gets out of place or whatever, you're going to end up having to adjust it anyway. So don't freak out about that. Okay, so as you can see, and I'm going to try to once again get super close here for you. That spring is now in place, and that short end we were talking about with the right angle is poking straight down there. This spring has to come up and over and hook on that side, and you see how that puts pressure on everything. Okay, so what we're going to do, and guys, I'm going to try to show you this, but it's going to be real hard because you got to hold down the spring here. So I'm holding down the spring. You lift up on the side, and you want to push this end up over the top of the bolt catch and then down into place, just like that. And I'm going to show you guys up close here what that looks like. Hang on. Make sure that everything is in and secure. Yeah, guys, I'll tell you, that spring, of everything else you do in this mod, that spring will always be the one that gives you the biggest pain in the butt, but it's also the biggest cause of any minor problems is that little spring right there. So once again, fully assembled. There it is. That's how it sits in there. Long end down, short end here in the front. Okay? All right. Now we're going to go ahead and reassemble this right now, guys. I have not installed, as you can see, the CO2 restrictor in this yet. I may or may not. I haven't decided yet. Really, it's all about more shots. But at the end of the day, if you're in a self-defense situation, those first 5 or 6, that's the critical area, and you want the most punch. The CO2 restrictor is fantastic for giving you more shots and regulating them to where they're more average on all your shots. So you don't get a 500 out of one and a 380 out of your second shot. It actually makes them consistent because you're not getting a lot of wasted CO2 out behind the round. It gives it a second to repressurize the cylinder so you're not wasting the CO2. So, all right, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and reassemble this. We're going to take our washer. Here's our bolt and our spring. Now, just like I took it apart a minute ago, guys, you saw this thing pop apart. The easiest way to do this is there's an indent right here at the top. Set that in that indent, just like that. Now, hold your thumbs here. See how I'm holding down the springs? And then push in and lower it down into place. And you'll know you're in place because you've actually got, and actually, let me show you that before we do that. You got a notch right here that will seat into here, okay? So here we go. We're going to push it in and lower it onto the notch. There we go. Now I'm going to bring this up and show you guys. That's that notch I was talking about. Now, guys, I know I made that look kind of easy. I've done 100 of these things, probably more, but it really is not as hard as it looks. So if you want to do this mod for yourself or this upgrade, just do it. It's not going to hurt anything. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our follower in place so we don't forget it, and we will, trust me. Take our barrel with our detent already installed and replace it right there. Now, there are aftermarket detents on this, and guys, I'm working on a supplier for that for you guys now. I've already tested one of them, and I was very impressed. He 3D prints them, and I have never had the best luck printing out of rubber, but he did a really good job with it, so we may come back to him. All right, now we're going to put the top back on here and close her down. And then, of course, the funnest part of this whole thing is testing it. Yeah, for sure. Okay, make sure we're all down. We are, and there we go. Line everything up, and make sure your follower is in the gap. There you go. And seat everything down. Here it kind of snaps together. All right, tell you what, I'm going to put the screws in, save you having to watch that. Here we go. All right, guys, so we've got all the screws back in here. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure that after you get all your screws back in, test functionality. Make sure that everything is firing free. Make sure that your follower is moving free and you don't have anything binding up. And that looks good. At this point, technically, you can put a CO2 in here and actually charge it and fire it. But I probably wouldn't. All right, take our bottom here. When you put the bottom in, you're going to want to slide the trigger back a tiny bit so it doesn't catch the guard right there. All right? And then remember, it's the opposite of the way you did it. So if you pulled them out from this side, you flip it over and you're going to put them in from this side. Guys, these pins are different sizes, and if you get them into the wrong place, they'll protrude out one side or the other. So you don't have to worry too much about getting them into the wrong place because you will know. And you can actually measure them up like that. You see that? That pin is actually the wrong one. It's too long. So let's check this one. There you go. And pop her through. And I want to try to get, hopefully I think this is the wrong one. Let's see if it is. No, it's the right one. Unfortunately, I hit it right off the bat. Okay. Get my punch, take this level. And remember, you've got ridges on these pins, guys. Look here. See the ridges? So you want to make sure those ridges are going in down as you do this. These two are the ones that most people make the most mistake on, because you got to remember, that slide takes up space. There you go. So you can see how wide that's supposed to be. So here, we push that down, pop that in, and level it out. If you do this install and you turn this over and you notice that, remember what I was telling you? That means you use the wrong pin. It's too long. So pop it back through. There we go. Honestly, it wouldn't matter if you left it that way. I've had a couple come in here for modifications where they had done that and just left it that way. It's not going to hurt anything if you leave it that way. It just doesn't look right. So now we're going to put the right one in and tap her down. There we go. Now if you look at it, just like it's supposed to be. See that? So you want to be real careful about that. Now, your barrel, you're going to take your follower, take your spring, put it on top of your follower, just like that. Take your barrel. On your barrel, you got a little hole right there where your spring goes. Put the spring in, and then slide it all the way back, down, and forward. And the holes will line up on the front and the back if you've got it right. All right, so we're going to go ahead. Let's put these back in. There we go. Tap it in lightly. There you go. And you got one more that goes in the trigger guard. Right there. That one goes in real easy, guys, so you don't have to force that crazy. And then we'll go ahead and make sure we level out the front one on the rail. If you get that one and it's not leveled, what happens is you can't mount anything to your Picatinny rail because it hangs up. And now we're all back together again. Well, guys, there's only one more thing to do. Let's see if it actually fires. All put back together. Hang on a second. You're going to put in one CO2 cartridge, nozzle down, and then you're going to screw this together. And once again, guys, do not over-tighten this. Once you've got this in and hand tight, it will stop. Once it stops right there, don't go any further. You don't have to force it. And you're ready to go. And as you can see, we're popped out on the back. Now, guys, we've got no ammo in this, and we are firing wide open, so we don't have any of the we don't have any of the CO2 restriction going on. So this is going to be probably 8 to 10 heavy shots. Nice safe direction over here. Nothing in the way. Let's just pull the trigger. All right. Did you see the recoil? That ain't me making it up, guys. It actually has a little recoil. Nine shots. And guys, that's actually about accurate. About 9 shots is what you're going to get. Once you put in the CO2 restrictor, you're going to get more shots. And let me show you what I'm talking about with that. Hold on a second. All right. So what I'm going to do, guys, remember the screw we used to pop it out? This is a CO2 restrictor. We're going to go ahead and we're going to screw that on there. All right. And we're going to, from the bottom of the launcher, we're going to insert the CO2 restrictor. Now, once it's in place, guys, you can just give it a little tap. You do not have to hit this hard, guys. A little tap because it's held in place with pressure. Then unscrew the screw. And now, as you can see if you look up in there, you've got your CO2 restrictor all installed. All right, guys, so remember, what did we get? 8, 9 shots? All right, so let's try this again, and let's just see what we get out of it with the restrictor in place, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, screwing that together. There we go, and charging it up. Here we go. Same direction. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. See what it does? So the CO2 restrictor actually restricts the flow going up in there. Now, you can drill that out to different sizes as well, guys, if you want to give it a little more power over the restriction. But at the end of the day, if you want more shots, insert the restrictor. If you want a crazy just bam, don't put the restrictor in. Run it wide open. Pretty cool, right? Well, guys, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget the specials. I know this video ran long. I really appreciate those of you who stayed till the end. Very few people do that except you, and you know who you are. Have a fantastic week, guys. Bye-bye.